and welcome to another episode of the Ground Control Podcast. I am Patrick Reif, and I am extremely pleased to be bringing it to you from a different location today. Um, this is my home. Welcome. Let's get into it. So I was driving this week, and the theme of this week is it's about balancing the practical and the aspirational. And I think that I tend to talk in these podcasts a lot about how things come to fruition inside of the world or the realm of businesses. But honestly, the Ground Control Podcast is meant to be a blend of both of those things because they are not solamente, right? These things don't exist in their own silos. Uh, our business lives and our personal lives and our professional lives and our private lives, internally and externally, they all meld together. And we're often sold this bill of goods to think that they should be totemic and on their own. And I think that part of the reason for me that I have struggled a lot in the past has been trying to not allow those things to blend in with one another. So again, this week's podcast is about talking about the practical and the aspirational, right? Like these things that are binary and clear, and we understand them, and they're what we need to do on any given day versus the things that happen in our minds that inspire us, right? The things that we aspire to, the things that we dream towards. And for me, the aspirational side of life is the pinnacle of what drives me forward. I am inherently a very curious person, and that curiosity is what I can count on and rely on to breathe life and enthusiasm into what I do every day. So I was driving, and this kind of phrase it really struck me as profound. It's simple, right? It's not overly profound in any capacity whatsoever. However, to me in that moment, right, it helped to clarify a lot of the tension that I experience on a regular basis because I am a person who just can't help but come up with ideas and then want to act on them, right? Maybe it's a little bit of attention deficit disorder. Maybe it's just a little bit of enthusiasm and believing in myself. That's how I like to think about it. I like to think about it as believing in myself. But what I realize is a lot of times I I'll lean totally and completely into the aspiration, to the idea, to the zeal of the moment, and I'll over index, right? Maybe I'll commit a little bit more than I should, whether that's time in that given day, whether it's popping over to Namecheap real quick and buying another domain for this idea that like in the aspirational moment, the time that it's going to take to execute that thing, it seems so infinitesimal, right? It's tiny. It's like, right, like here's this idea, and all it's going to take is this, and then it'll be live and it'll be out there and it'll do all the things that I want it to do. And then the practical side of reality comes in, right? Once you've bought in, once you own that new domain, and you're like, right, I'll just get to that in a little bit. And then when the practical side of actually planning for it comes around, you realize that it's a lot more nuanced than what you thought it might have been, right? It's going to take a lot more time than what you might have thought it would take, and that's when reality starts to seep in, right? That's when that conflict seeps in, and then for me, all of a sudden, it feels a lot like, oh shit, like now I have added yet another thing to my plate that I have to figure out how to balance with all of the other aspirational things that I've allowed to force themselves onto my world, and now I'm in this place of friction and conflict. So I find that when that friction hits, right, the duality between both of those places, it's a mix of regret and enthusiasm. It's not that the value of the idea disappears completely. I'm not so impulsive that I move on things that don't have potential. It's just that, again, enthusiasm and zeal allows you to minimize what the opportunity cost is actually going to require, right? So there is some regret, like I can tell that there have been many times in my life where I have overcommitted to something and been like, oh, how am I going to do that? And maybe it was something that I wasn't as excited about, and for whatever reason, maybe it was like an idea with someone else or some kind of partnership, and like I start to kind of work on it, but realize that it's going to require more bandwidth than I actually have to be able to give, and for whatever reason, like it peters out, and I'm like, oh, like excellent, dodged a bullet there in that moment. Um, Only to 30 seconds later, reinvest in some other idea and realize like, oh, look, like you just cleared your plate of thing A, and you immediately filled it up with thing B, and you didn't allow yourself to say, well, wait, maybe the right thing for this moment is just to have nothing on my plate and to allow it to be what it is. And I think personally, that is a lesson that I'm always trying to teach myself and to learn from myself. And that's a very personal thing. I think where I end up with it a lot of times is I would rather be burdened with figuring out how to manage more things than to not have any ideas at all. So, like, part of the reason of continuing to do this, right, is there's a lot of intentionality that is brought to it. And I will be the first one to say that I inherently do too much. And I have had an internal dialogue for years and years about, are you doing too much? Do you do too much? And then the other side of that is, well, like, why would I want to do any less than what I feel like I should be doing? And, like I've decided to commit to that side of me. And the reason being is that I do think that I can handle it. I do think that it's important to continue to challenge yourself. And the way that I'm challenging myself now is not just to have those ideas, but to have those ideas, to operationalize them in a reasonable way, to make sure that I'm building systems around them so they don't overwhelm me in the total, right? Like being overwhelmed in moment to moment iteration is completely fine. Like that's part of pushing yourself. Part of pushing yourself is going beyond your comfort level and then acclimating to being beyond your comfort level and then thriving in that beyond, right? So for me, I'm okay with knowing that there are going to be some days that are too much. And I'll take it because I also know that there's an ebb and flow that happens. And I've been doing this long enough to know that when the flow is happening and the flow feels too strong, that there is an ebb that is just around the bend. And when I get there, that I will be grateful for not having cut bait, right? That I will be grateful for having continued to push through, and I will be able to rest in that ebb and replan and assess, right? Did I get through that previous instance of flow well, right? Did I do a good job in that previous instance of flow? What could I have done better? What elements, if I tweaked them, would have made it not so intense? And then I apply those to my thinking. I apply those to my systems. I apply those to my planning. So the next time that iteration comes again, we try some things out, and maybe they'll be great and maybe they won't. What is this leading to? In the long run, it's leading to, ideally a cohort of different ideas and businesses and projects that all have their natural place in my ecosystem. A big part of ground control, like ground control is this blend of things, right? You guys are here, you're on this journey with me right now, right? A big part of ground control is writing and sharing my ideas in this capacity and getting those things out there, because I think that there are a lot of people in the world that have a lot of the same doubts and struggles as I do. I think that there are a lot of people in the world that are overly aspirational, and for a good reason. They're overly aspirational, and to have that same challenge validated with other people is really important. But then the other side of ground control is building a business. And for me, that business is coaching and consulting because I love working with people. It's something that took me a very long time to come to a place of honesty with myself about how much I enjoyed doing that kind of work, but also that I was good at it and that I was being helpful to people. The other side is I still want to build stuff. I still want to actively try things out, to apply new systems, to investigate new technologies, to allow my ideas to be infused with all of the potential of the world as it evolves. Right. So in that light, ground control is also, like it's a bit of a holding company. It's a bit of a laboratory, experimental vehicle for me to do all of these things, right? It's a media company. It is a holding company. It is a coaching and consulting company. It's all of these things blended into one. And for me, that's what feels right. For you, that may not feel right, but for me, that's what feels right. And I think that there are other people out there who would benefit from thinking about everything that they're trying to do in a similar capacity. So wrapping it up, right? Like I love for these podcasts to be succinct. I'm not always the most succinct, but I just thought that in this week, in this moment, when I was thinking about a paradigm that surfaces very regularly for me and having such a clean way to button it up in a phrase, that it would be a great way for me to spend some time with you guys. I've got a bunch of really fun stuff that is coming down the lane. Last week we talked about Baltimore creators, and our Builder Fridays, which again they're building. We're working on them. We're getting things launched. I've got other things as well, and it's all part of this, right? Like there have been, I think it was maybe last Friday after publishing Builder Fridays, I was in a place of flow and overwhelm, and then I moved out of it, and I was in the ebb, and I was like, things are okay, things are great, and it was in that place where I ruminated on this exact idea, and I thought that it was a perfect way to catch up with everyone this week. So that's it. That's this week's episode of the Ground Control Podcast. I'm Patrick Reif. Please, if you enjoyed this podcast, I would encourage you to subscribe. If you are on YouTube, make sure you hit the bell. Leave me a comment. Tell me about how you manage ebb and flow. Tell me about how you empower yourself to do too much and not lose the plot at the same time. I do my very best to respond to every single comment there. So, again, I'm Patrick Reif. This is the Ground Control Podcast. We'll see you next week. Peace.